Okay. Okay. Thank you, Nishith ji and everyone for having me here. I terribly miss being there in person. Um, I would have loved to be there, have had it not been for a personal commitment back here. But I look forward to forward to this interaction. What I'd like to do today is share the story of Rivigo on the journey it has been through over the last 8 years, uh, and the problem we have tried to solve over the last 8 years in a very unique way, and then subsequently would open the house for questions and the interaction. Um a little bit of my personal background. I graduated from IIT Kanpur. I went to IIM and then joined McKinsey. I was in McKinsey for about 8 years. Um, and I was wanting to leave McKinsey every year of the time I was there to start up, because from the time I remember, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Um, and I don't know the motivation behind it, but I think that is the earliest thought of thinking about what I want to do in the future is entrepreneurship. I remember back in IIT Kanpur, those were dot-com days. I helped start the entrepreneurship cell of IIT Kanpur. So I know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur for a fairly long period of time. Um, but in 2014, when I thought of finally quitting McKinsey and starting out, I started looking at various spaces and areas of impact. One of the big areas of impact I thought was this whole trucking and logistics space. Um, Everywhere I went during the day, and I traveled across the country, meeting a lot of truckers, meeting transporters, meeting customers. Everyone was unhappy. Truckers unhappy with the lifestyle they were having. Customers are unhappy that they were not getting goods on time. Truck OEMs are unhappy that their truck sales are not good enough. Right? So everyone in the sector was unhappy. So I thought, अगर इतने लोग नाखुश हैं इस सेक्टर से, so there must be some problem. There must be an insight, which I can figure out and hopefully build an enterprise around it. With that idea, started talking to a lot of people. And that was also a time when Uber was getting quite popular, where Uber had actually tried to solve the problem in the cab transportation space using technology. And the early thought I remember I had was to replicate that in trucking. But when I entered deeper into the sector, I realized that technology alone will not be able to solve the problem, because there was a deeper issue, which I, came across, which I'm going to share here. Right. I realized that, India is a country which is so much unemployment, still needs about a million odd truck drivers every year. But if you go down to Indian villages and meet truck drivers, no one wants to be a truck driver. And why so? It's not because of the money they earn. A truck driver earns a lot of a good amount of money. A typical truck driver will earn anywhere between 5 to 7 lakhs a year, which is not insubstantial, right? And it's higher compared to a lot of other job classes in the country. Despite that, no one wanted to be a truck driver. And the problem or the insight was that the truck drivers have a very, very poor lifestyle, right? They spend time away from home, do not get to see their families. 40% of them have HIV. They live 10 years lesser compared to an average human being in India, right? And the biggest issue was a truck driver in an Indian village would not get married, right? No one want to marry a truck driver in the Indian village, because they would say, ये तो बाहर ही रहने वाला है. He's gonna stay outside, spend months away from home, is not gonna have a family life. So, if you're not having a family life, you're not getting married. Marriage is also a sign of social respect in the village, right? If you're married, you have social respect in the village. If you're not married, you're an outcast. One of the things I started to hear often on the Indian highways was, साहब ये तो 37वीं कॉम है. There's a 37th caste. ट्रक ड्राइवर का तो कोई भरोसा नहीं है, ये तो 37वीं कॉम है. I did not know what that meant, honestly. I did not know that India has 36 caste. I did not know that truck drivers were called 37th caste. I did not know that it's such a big social problem, that, even despite, a good income, no one in the village wanted to be a truck driver. So I thought, if India were to become a large economy, supply chains of the country will have to be big. And those supply chains are still 70% of them are driven by trucking and road transportation. With such huge requirement of truck pilots, how would we solve this problem, right? And that was the problem statement. So from it being a technology marketplace, very soon the idea turned around to become, the idea to solve a human problem, where people on the front line were having a very, very poor lifestyle. And I thought, how could technology help, or problem solving help to solve this problem? One thing led to the other. Several brainstorming and problem solving sessions later, came across a very commonsensical and a very intuitive idea, which is, why do truck drivers have to spend time away from home? If there was a way we could bring them home every day, connect them back to their families, they would hopefully have good social lives. They will start to get married. They will not acquire HIV or other lifestyle diseases. They will be eating at home. They will have a healthy life and probably have longer lives. And given the pay structure in trucking, which is already good, if you're able to bring them back home every day, hopefully we will see the youth again taking on this job profession, right? Um, uh, Back then, there was also a forecast by the Indian government saying that India will have 50% shortage of truck drivers in this decade, right? Which was very alarming. So with that idea, I started meeting a lot of people, including truck drivers themselves, and saw a very high, very positive wave of emotion from truck pilots. They said, साहब अगर आप ये चीज़ करने वाले हो तो आप मेरा नंबर ले लो, और प्लीज़ मुझे ज़रूर काम देना इसमें, अगर आप ये शुरू करोगे, बिकॉज ये मुझे अच्छा लग रहा है। अगर मैं हर दिन घर घर आ पाऊँ और अपनी फैमिली के पास रह पाऊँ, तो आई विल डेफिनेटली वांट टू बी अ पार्ट ऑफ दिस movement. One thing led to the other, and we soon cracked an order with Amazon, where we said, we will you are transporting all your goods through air transport. We will give you the same quality of service, the same transit time, but on the road. So we made a very bold statement called air shipment on road. Whatever time you are taking to transport goods on air, we will replicate that on road using relay trucking, because in relay trucking, the truck never stops. And the three benefits of relay trucking, in a relay trucking, a truck never stops, driver comes back home, but also the utilization of the truck is very high, so it's lower cost. So I thought, we will give you not just the air quality service on road, but we will give you at a reasonable cost. But also there is a human angle to it. The drivers who are driving are well rested. They are coming back to their homes every day, and they are connecting back to the social ecosystem. So the accidents are lower, the quality of life they are leading are better, and it's a more sustainable idea. Um, we started with Amazon, and in a matter of couple of years, we started to run almost 80-90% of Amazon's India network in terms of the road transportation. Same with Flipkart, same with a lot of big brands. And it became a movement, right from Honorable Prime Minister to CEOs of companies to, the humble truck driver. Everyone appreciated the innovation we brought, and the technology we brought, and the mission we brought. The vision of the company became making logistics human, not making logistics simple or faster or lower cost, but making logistics human. Because fundamentally, as an entrepreneur, I believed, the objective of technology, or the objective of problem solving, or the objective of any enterprise should be to have an impact, to should be to make human life better. And then the profits, or the valuations, or the market cap is all sustainable and long lasting. But unless you have that as a core, the impact at the core, everything else could be short term. So with that idea, Rivigo soon, from a very simple and a humble idea, became a large enterprise. Our peak valuation got to $1 billion. We got marquee PE investors investing in the company and launched several other businesses. It all came from a very small insight. So while the title of the talk said, solving the trucker problem the IIT way, I would say, it is solving the trucker problem in a commonsensical way, in a human way, than a IIT way. Yes, the technology pedigree, the technology insight did play a role because this idea would not have been possible unless there was a lot of technology, which was available, which we had to work on. So over time, we got multiple patents. We did a lot of research, and we executed and implemented all that research in terms of building high quality technology products, whether it was in terms of fuel efficiency management, tire IoTs, managing the vitals of the truck. But because please remember, we were trying to delineate the truck from the truck pilot himself, right? So we were almost making the truck a sort of a semi-autonomous truck, because the driver would not no longer be responsible for a particular truck. He would drive for a certain amount of kilometers and then hand over the truck to someone else. Right. So we had to develop a lot of that technology. We had to put a lot of investment into R&D, and that's how we got all those patents. And I still believe the idea is early stages of implementation. It's a big cultural change. It is a global first implementation of relay at scale. No one globally has kind of done it, whereas a lot of companies are now looking at it because truck driver shortage is a global problem. US has a huge shortage of truck drivers, and the wages of truck drivers are shooting up. Same with Australia, or same with Europe, and every economy is getting sensitive. While there's a lot of research and innovation happening on autonomous vehicles and autonomous trucks. It's still far away in terms of implementation, and I have been part of these conversation circles where even in autonomous trucks, people are saying for several decades one will need to have safety guardian, or people who will be in the trucks and will be needing to hand over the trucks and exchange the trucks. So the core relay technology of managing the truck with the changeover of pilots will be needed in case of autonomous trucks as well for a fairly long period of time till the autonomous trucks become level 5 autonomous and scale up. So UPS has its prediction that at least for 20 years from here, we will need sort of a safety guardian in the truck, which will actually change over at different points on the highway, even with the autonomous truck kind of capability. So I believe, I think if you say, it'll take 50 to 70 years for, fully autonomous vehicles to be trucks to be, deployed. I think there'll be a several decade period where relay trucking will actually be, will be required and will be the bridge to the autonomous world, right? From an inhuman world to a fully technology-led, autonomous world, there'll be relay trucking required to make sure that there's impact happening on the ground. We have been running this for 8 years. Lately, you may have read the news. We have sold our part truckload business to Mahindra Logistics. There are multiple divisions of Revivo, full truckload technology, part truckload. We have sold a part truckload business to Mahindra Logistics. Um, there's a lot of technology we have. We are now trying to use that technology to make other fleets, make logistics human. And our goal will be to take those technologies more and more widely, and not just to Indian fleet owners, but also global. So I'll end the conversation and my part of the talk here, and open it up to Q&A and interaction. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for a very emotional connect with the business. And I know truckers' life is one of the worst in many ways, and you really touch lives of billions of people. I think, first of all, thank you as a societal member for the wonderful job done, and really admire you. And we are all emotional. I hope you would have been in person here, but next time. And second thing, Vikram would like to ask you a question. You know, Vikram, who connected
Yes.
us, and
Yeah.
So
Hello,
he's
Yeah.
Deepak.
working with you from our firm side. So thank you so much, Vikram. Go ahead.
Hello, Deepak. We were introduced to you and Rivigo by Shilpa, your former legal head. Um, Congratulations on your book titled 37 Cast. I think the whole sort of disruption that you brought to the logistics sector, I think it's quite commendable, and I'm hoping that that innovation continues. But just a curious sort of factor in terms of the name Rivigo, and I understood from Shilpa that it means river flowing intensely, right? So can you just give us a bit of your philosophy on the name Rivigo? What made you pick up that name for the logistic sector sort of a business?
Yeah, so very interesting. We were earlier called Vikram. We were earlier called Trucks First, but we realized that and earlier the plan was not that large, right? I mean, we were running a few trucks, um, but soon it started to become a movement, and Trucks First was a limiting name, so we started to think of a name which could actually do justice to what we are trying to do. Back in the day, our team room was always trying to solve for different problems and obstacles, right? And would always say, be like a river, behte rehna hai. Let's overcome the obstacles, either find a way or make your own way, just like a river does. Nadi rukti nahi hai. River never stops. So this constant kind of theme was a part of our team rooms and problem solving sessions. And literally, when you are trying to cross Indian highways in path breaking turnaround times, I remember, Gati's ERP system used to have Delhi to Mumbai transit time as an express company 60 hours, and we started to deliver Delhi to Mumbai in 24 hours. No one believed us back then, so we had to cross, five borders. We have to, be on the 1400-kilometer highway, or overcome all those obstacles. Every time we had to be on time and deliver this in 24 hours. So this keep nadi ki tarah, so river on the go. So when we started to think of a name, river came as a natural kind of an inspiration for us. Philosophy of river. River does not stop. River finds its own way. It overcomes a lot of obstacles, but with persistence, breaks those obstacles and overpowers those obstacles, right? Not through power, but because of persistence. And as a startup, as a young startup in this huge, country of trucking, it was a big, it was a good philosophy to carry forward, right? Of persistence, not of power, right? Of willpower, of continuing to create impact. That's how River Rivigo came into being.
Very interesting. Thank you so much. Questions?
Hi, this is Gauri. I think recently India has announced the logistic policy, and I think what you have done probably can contribute a lot in that. I'm sure you may have been involved even in that policy making. Just want to, your thoughts on what can India do next in terms of on that policy level, and secondly, on the road infrastructure. I know Mr. Gadkari is trying to do his best, but still there is a long way to go over, in insofar as road infrastructure is concerned. So, what is your vision in terms of how do you see? Because you must have been, integral part of those discussions. So, your views on the in on these 2 points.
Uh, Gauri, I think great question. Uh, I see logistics is very, very important for for India's economy, and it's obvious, but I just want to throw some kind of more logic to it. But the fact is, every economy which has grown to be a developed economy has done it through exports, right? I mean, you look at the history of different economies, right? I mean, they have India cannot grow unless we are able to really seize the moment right now of China plus one strategy, which is most global companies want to have. and really play a role, right? And we have been hearing this China plus one for a while now, right? Back in the day in McKinsey, also, I used to do a workshop with a lot of my global clients, bring them to India and say, India is here, and but people are not going to take us seriously unless our cost and the quality both match up to the level. At the end of the day, people are commercial, even if they want to de-risk the supply chains after COVID, they want to get the same quality and the cost. And logistics is an important aspect of the cost equation, right? Just to give an example, despite the factor cost of China being 7x that of India, the cost of transportation from Delhi to Mumbai is same as cost of transportation from Beijing to Shanghai, which is equidistant. It's 1400, roughly 1300-1400 kilometers. Factor cost is 7x. Labor in Beijing gets $1400 a month, whereas in India you pay about 200 kind of dollars a month, right? So despite that, so the productivity difference is huge, right? So I am therefore a lot of technology is required, and a lot of standardization is required. A lot of infrastructure development is required, right? Now these are all long term initiatives. Productivity cannot come in just by skilling and just by cultural transformation. We have to really invest in heavy infrastructure. We have to move away from jugaad mindset to a mindset of long term thinking and sustainability. Therefore standardization is very, very critical. We have hundreds of truck types. You have to limit them to few truck types. You have hundreds of pallet sizes. We are not palletized. You have to make it, we have to standardize our warehouses. Our warehouse detention times are very, very, very high. While what we have done on the highways in terms of making truck driver life human is working, but companies are still hoarding goods at the warehouse, hoarding, using trucks as warehouses, because for a simple reason that warehouses are still part of a Minister of Agriculture, not part of Factories Act. Now, so our factories are becoming world class, but our warehouses in the same compound, fall under a different ministry and a different setup, or because historically FCI used to have warehouses. So they are not part of the same. They are not part of the Factories Act. So when the audit happens, factory को audit तो बहुत अच्छा होता है, but warehouses are not looked at, and warehouse space is not being considered. So I've passionately spoken about these topics, and some of them are actually taken up in the logistics policy, and what Mr. Gadkari has, or the policy has, in terms of the plans. But I think there's still a long way to go. All right, it's a lot of investment, it's a lot of effort. We have to think long term. We can't think election to election. We can't think 5 years. We can't think, we have to start thinking 10, 20, 50 years, and we have to think of that sort of time frame to lay out our plans. So I'm hopeful. I'm very optimistic that India will seize this opportunity, seize the day, and become a real alternate to China in terms of the
Sorry.
export destination for global companies.
So I think while this is being refixed, a small announcement. Kabir's book will be available to all of them for $100 each.
This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now we'll talk about it later.
I
but
think we
ev-
have Mr. Deepak Garg.
Sorry,
back on.
Deepak, you got lost for a minute. We have reconnected. Hold on for 1 second. I was making some unrelated announcement.
Sure.
So Kabir's book, Stories I Must Tell, is available for free with his signature. If anybody wants personalized endorsement, he'll be available. He will be joining us for lunch. Thank you so much, Kabir and Malvika, and wonderful. So you had great story, and now people can meet with you freely and whatever you want. Happy to give you a picture if somebody wants. Okay, thank you. So Deepak, please continue. Sorry, there was some interruption in the connection. So please carry on. You had again a very good story to tell. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. No, I made my point, which is I said, there's a lot of long-term thinking required in a policy and execution of that policy in terms of having an impact, and there's an opportunity right now with global trade flows the way they are, and the motivation of companies to actually source from India is the strongest ever that I have seen. So I'm very optimistic and hopeful that we will seize the moment right now and all the impact we're trying to make in infrastructure, logistics, technology will bear fruit.
Hello.
Hello.
Deepak, this is Vaibhav Parikh here. I actually first interacted with you when you were Trucks First, when we did deal for Trifecta, which was one of the initial, and simultaneously we were also doing deal for TA, which I don't know whether it actually materialized, but I had spoken to you at that point of time, and you had given this vision, which at that point of time was sounding very interesting but little difficult to implement, and you actually made it happen. My question to you is, uh, when you talked about it and about your vision, which is what I heard again today. Uh, I had a skepticism in it, right? I felt little, okay, will you actually be able to make it? And now you've been able to make it. I'm sure you found that skepticism during your implementation. So my question to you was, what are the three top challenges you kind of met with? One, from cultural perspective, because truckers actually loved their vehicle. They had their ownership, they were married to a vehicle. And now you are getting the emotions out from a trucker with his truck, right? So the decoupling of that, how did you face any challenge? What was that challenge about? And on technology side, so based from cultural and on technology side, what were the three greatest challenge you faced in your implementation?
Sure. Sure. Great question. Thank you. Uh,
Sorry, I have a additional question from Renuka, also from investor.
sure. When I was beginning this journey, I always knew that this is going to be lifetime's work, right? This is not this is not a small project. It's a big cultural technological transformation which the sector needs. So I signed up for that, and I was like motivated and passionate to see it through and pursue it through. Right. Of course, there was a lot of skepticism. There still is. There will be. And that's what is kind of provides challenge to an entrepreneur. ये हो नहीं सकता, ये 24 घंटे हो नहीं सकते, this can't happen at scale. ये that's what provides. It's a food for an entrepreneur, right? उसके लिए oxygen है, उसके लिए खाना है, right? I mean, all the skepticism is something you have to eat, and get fueled by it, right? To answer your question around, how is the cultural transformation at the truck drivers end happening? I think, you know, uh, for any cultural transformation to happen or change to happen, the impact or the benefit of the change has to be higher than the cost of transition, right? So while there is an emotional element of attachment to the vehicle, now if the impact of that transformation is higher in terms of a better life, in terms of good family life, in terms of families not wanting the truck drivers to go back to traditional trucking again, right? The daughters don't want the father to leave, the wives don't want their husbands to leave, the mothers don't want their son to leave, right? Again, and go on a 2 month long kind of trip where uska pata nahi hoga kahan hai, but and they are getting used to seeing him every day, right? So if that is happening, I think the change is sticky. Plus, back in the day, in I think 2016-17, we wrote a memo for ourselves called Future of Truck Pilots. That is a 10-year out future. How will the truck pilots kind of live their life? And it was game changing back then in terms of what we wanted to achieve. And I can tell you that 60-70% of the things are implemented of that, right? And we didn't do it. We basically tied up with a lot of people in the ecosystem to it, whether it's banks, financiers, insurance companies, so many people. One of the simple things we did was, for example, every truck pilot should have a health insurance, because health is the biggest cost or risk to a truck pilot's life, right? Now, how do you make it cheap enough? How do you ensure that it's accessible? How do you ensure it solves a problem? That has become a big sticky point. So relay is a big change, but once we actually peppered relay with all of these small changes, which makes his life wholesome and better and more risk free, the transformation started to happen, right? Having said that, it's still challenging. It was challenging back then. I think the technology is still not as advanced, because as I said, you almost need to make an autonomous kind of trucking technology for it to really kind of fully succeed, um, because you're changing truck drivers. So you're prone to pilferages, you're prone to kind of asset ownership, you're prone to a lot of things because you're actually removing the ownership of a truck pilot from the truck. So how do you make sure that the technology is advanced enough so that each small element of the cost or asset management can be taken care of. There's been challenge, of course, from investor point of view, because this is a long term idea, right? This needs patient capital. This is an impact idea, right? So I think a lot of the investors are, of course, looking at short term impact and short term this thing. So there's, of course, definitely that alignment. Getting to that alignment is, of course, a path which is a challenging path. There has also been challenge from the aspect of the volatility that we have seen in the Indian market, particularly with COVID and a whole lot of other things, where the customer uh, of the services is opportunistic, right? Let's say when there was a shortage of truck drivers, relay gets all the kind of demand and love, but in seasons where there's no, the shortage is not there, there's of course a pushback. So there's, of course, a cultural transformation that has to happen at the companies themselves. Like I said, if the turnaround time is fast and the utilization is good, but if you start holding the truck as a warehouse, and make the life of a truck driver human by holding him in the warehouse for a couple of days for loading and unloading, then all the impact you're creating goes away. So I think there's a lot of work still needs to be done, but there's a lot of challenges one has overcome over the last 8 years.
Deepak, very inspiring, and thank you so much. We really appreciate and hope you can come to our research center next time. Thank
Uh,
you. Niyati, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Deepak Garg, for sharing your innovative ideas and thought process.